You're listening to episode 11 of the On Being Human podcast. This episode is brought to you by the On Being Human podcast Love Story Contest. Submit a voice recording of what you love about your significant other or tell a sweet story. By submitting the recording, you have a chance to be featured on a podcast episode in February 2019, and you'll be entered to win a $50 Visa gift card. For more details, visit onbeinghumanpodcast.com/blog/love story contest rules. The submission deadline is January 25th, 2019, and good luck.
Welcome to the On Being Human podcast, where we believe transforming ourselves can positively transform society. Your host, Brandy Fleck, has the honor of exploring the human condition with real people who bravely share their personal stories of adversity, healing, joy, and more. If you're seeking empowerment, strength, and inspiration, listen in to engage and explore tough topics that help us humanize one another, understand ourselves better, spread love, and connect.
Last week, we heard Scotty and Carrie Hunt detail a life-threatening postpartum heart condition, their realization on the calling to adopt, and they gave great tips for selecting an adoption agency and how to support your loved ones if they're going through the adoption process. If you haven't heard it yet, check it out at onbeinghumanpodcast.com/episodes/010. Now, in part 2 of this 2-part series on international adoption, the couple opens up about the exact moment they saw Jordan for the first time and bringing him home. Carrie and Scotty genuinely go through the emotions as they're telling their story, and it's worth a listen to know what that's like. They talk about the concept of cocooning during the transition home and supporting their third son through cultural differences. Plus, you'll hear about great tips for creative fundraising and how to obtain financial assistance for adoption through grants and taxes. Carrie works as an X-ray technician, and Scotty is a real estate agent in the Murfreesboro, Tennessee area. Carrie loves reading, puzzles, volunteering, traveling, and going to museums, while Scotty loves coaching his kids' sports teams, video games, traveling, and camping. So let's hear more about their amazing and miraculous journey, picking up exactly where we left off last week. Can you describe the feeling you had when you finally met your third child for the first time?
In person or on the we found our son through their shared list through our agency, and the first time I saw him, I was like, he is a doll baby. I just was like, there is no way he can be on this list, because we actually had saw a child before him and reached out to our agency, and they're like, no, we have a family that has him on hold. So I was like, okay, thank you. Mm-hmm. So when we saw Jordan's picture, he was named Marcus at the time. That's the name that they just give him. I was like, no, there's no way. So it just kept bugging me all day. And I had emailed her and said, is this child available? And she emailed me back and said, yes. Do you want to put him on hold? So I was like, let me talk to Scotty. And I talked to him, and he said, well, apparently you want to see his file. And what it is a file about Jordan. It tells you everything that they know about him to this point, how he was evaluated, what type of environment he lives in now, health, about his health and his mental capability, and it just goes through it all. And what you do in that process is you end up going to a doctor and saying, here's his file. Can you kind of tell us what to expect when he gets home?
Okay.
And they kind of go through it and say, well, nothing's definite, like with any child, nothing's definite, but this is the challenges, or this is what you may have to go through when he comes home with therapy or whatever. So after we talked to them, we prayed on it and decided, yes, this is our son.
Okay.
When we traveled over there, the first time we saw him, I just cried like a baby.
Oh, I bet. Oh.
It was, because we had started Skyping. Once you get to a certain point in your journey and you get approved, and because they have to approve you as their family. China does. And you get that document saying, yes, everything's approved. You've done it all legally correct. You can start Skyping with them.
Okay.
The first Skype, all we did, the four of us, was sit there and stare, I think, at the screen. Because we couldn't believe we were actually seeing him.
Yeah.
And every week we got to Skype with him for an hour. But literally the first Skype, the foster home had to be like, are y'all going to talk? And we were like, we don't know what to say. Like, it was such a happy moment to see him. And then you're like, oh my goodness. So we did that for several weeks, until we have what's called travel approval, where you get granted access into China. You get permission to go into that country. And the first day we went there, we couldn't see him. We came in too late. And the second day, in the foster home, you go and you pray for all the children. You have a little Bible lesson, and then they were like, do you want to meet your son?
Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
Go around the corner. They have him standing in the courtyard, and just tears.
Oh, man.
Because he was beautiful.
Yeah.
And it was like your heart just said, there you are.
Yeah. That is just such... I mean, I can't even begin to imagine what it was like. Was there a sense of relief that you were finally with him?
Yes, I do. I felt like that. I don't know how you felt, Scotty. I felt like, okay, from this day forward, you're never out of our life.
Mm-hmm.
You'll never be. And it was beautiful.
That's great. So you guys mentioned a couple times that you had a few setbacks over the years, whether a child was on hold or, the funding or the program closed or something like that. But how did you keep the faith over the years when those setbacks occurred? And what advice would you have for people who are also going through similar setbacks?
It was... It was extremely difficult because we were trying to live our own life, but we were also trying to add to our family. So, we're going through the stress of trying to get everything they needed to get done for adoption, and then going through the process and the whole waiting period. And while we were doing domestic, it was just wait, and I, being a realtor, I wanted feedback on, who's seen or not really who's seen but what are they saying about our file whenever they see us? Because we did that book that, explained our family and everything else like that, and because we had our twins and everything, the biggest feedback was, this child was given to this set of parents because they didn't have children, or they only had one child, and of course we're not going to give up our two to get one, so
right.
We're just sitting there going, okay, well, we'll just kind of keep going, and when it happens, it happens. And then about little over a year and a half into it, we're like, okay, we see the little one from China and decide, find out we can qualify to go to do international, to go to China. So we start looking through that process, and we found that one little boy, and we started looking into his file, and come to find out that it was just too much for us to be able to handle his situation. So then we started looking at another little boy, and at that particular time, that was the one that the agency completely stopped talking to us.
I forgot about that one. Yes.
The foster home, or the not the foster home. This one was actually in
institution.
Yeah.
They were in a foster. They were in an orphanage.
Orphanage. Yes, that's the word I was looking for. So they were actually. This child was actually in an orphanage, and the orphanage completely, because we were asking so many questions to figure out what's going on with this child, they completely stopped talking to us.
Right.
Oh, wow.
So we had to then again let that one go. And after that one,
That just
we were extremely frustrated. I was stressed out. This was nearly 3 years into the process, a year, 2.5 years into the process, and I said, you know what, maybe it's just not the right thing. Maybe this is not our right time.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we still prayed about it and everything else like that. But all of this stuff was just becoming frustrating. Then, but probably less than a couple of weeks after that, that's when we found out that that particular agency that we were working with was going to shut down the China their China process. So that was just one more thing that kind of hit us, and we were just like, you know what? Maybe this is not going to work. Maybe this is not God's plan. Maybe this is not what we're meant to do. Mm-hmm. So I said, I think we should. This was December. Was it December? Okay.
Yeah.
I knew it was coming towards the end of the year. So I knew it was right before Christmas. I said, we're going to give it through Christmas, give it into January, and then we will revisit, and be able to basically just take a little bit of a break and not look at any child online. Do not look at any files or anything else like that. Just kind of let things go. Carrie can't let things go. So even though we did we made it through Christmas.
Yeah, we made it through Christmas.
Okay.
But a day before New Year's, Carrie's coming to me and she's just like, I found this little boy. I'm on a break. I'm on a break. Okay. And she's like, no, I just I'm just going to put this here and you look at it whenever you want to. And of course I'm stubborn, so it took me about an hour before I even glanced at it. So we finally looked at it and everything. And of course it was Jordan. And I was like, okay, find out about him. So we didn't even know if he was available at that time. This was just, she seen it online. She wanted to see, if we could move forward because, like I said, I was on a break. Mm-hmm. She said, I said, okay, find out about him, see if he's still available. He was still available. Then right after that, I was like, okay, let's see kind of just what it is about him. So
we did not have our hopes up at that.
No, we didn't.
We didn't build up anything because we didn't want to. This process is not for the tender-hearted, and if you are tender-hearted, it will make you stronger because it is an emotional roller coaster. Not because of the process, it's just because you put so much into it, like you would if you were trying to have a baby, because it is your child. And so it becomes a little stressful sometimes, a little emotional, but in the end, I think it was beautiful because he's worth the wait.
Right.
And that's the thing about adoption. The wait sometimes is hard, but in the end, everything comes beautifully together for God's plan. So that time when we were like, we're broken, we're not doing this anymore, about that time was when we got 2 grants that came in and said, we want to help you with your adoption expenses, and this is how much we're giving you. And they weren't little amounts, and even if they were, that's still helpful in this process. So we knew that God was sending us signs saying, keep going.
Wow.
Keep going.
Yeah.
Because in the end, it's going to be beautiful. So.
Wow. So what do you think you learned about God's timing through all this?
I learned that it's not my timing, it's His timing. And that's very important through this process, that you remember and that you write on your walls and your mirrors and everything else that it's not your timing. Because as human beings, we get very impatient. And I think this world has made us more of an instant world with instant messaging and, Skype, where I could instantly see my child but not touch them. But that's not God's plan. God strengthened you. He asked for you to, follow what he has planned for you. And sometimes that's hard to do as humans. But in the end, our child was not ready for us. And if we would have got him before then, no telling what would happen. So we are thankful for his timing. So yeah, that's what he taught me.
Awesome.
Patience.
Yep.
Okay, so we've got a few more questions before we wrapped up, but you guys mentioned grants coming through. I know that you also did some fundraisers over the years. Could you tell us a little bit about how you figured out what fundraisers to do and what went into that?
Sure. I'm a big researcher, so of course my go-to was to go and start researching. There's beautiful websites that tell you based on your, what your criteria is, if you can apply for them or not. So we went off of a list of Google and we just went down every single one. And there's a website I'll provide you to put for the readers. But you can literally go down and it'll say domestic. And you can, put the checkbox or cross it out. And then it goes down, okay, do you have a child with disabilities? Do you have a child that is from this country or that country? Or and they'll send you'll go to their link. They'll say they're accepting applicants between this time and this time. They have the applicants. Then you fill out the application, you send that, your home study, and some of the little things that they want, of course, blacked out with your social. Don't send anybody your social security number. And some of them ask for a donation to process it, like $20 or something. And we did that for everyone that we could. Everyone that we could, we did. I think we sent out about 30 and may have gotten 5 or 6 back. Some of them give it to your agency directly. So anything that your agency charges you, it will take off. Sometimes they send it to your travel agency so that it will be for travel. So that kind of thing, it all goes towards your fees, and it's all such a blessing. But yes, I'll definitely send y'all that so that you can dive into that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's great to know because I'm sure a lot of people, need assistance in that way who are going through this process. So awesome.
I also know that T-shirts are really big.
Okay.
We had a successful T-shirt fundraiser. We did a yard sale. We did a matching grant. That was helpful. And I did wreaths. I made wreaths for a while.
Awesome.
I'm trying to think of what else. There's so much you could do.
The capes were also a good one.
Yes, that was a fun one. We did capes for people around Halloween and for their little boys that love Superman and stuff like that. So that was a good one too.
Awesome. So did you just sell this stuff? Like, did you leverage social media or go through church, or how'd you do those?
Social media was a big one. We had a group there's a couple groups on Facebook that deal with adoption fundraising. And then on Fridays, they would allow you to post, anything that you were selling. We like to go on them as post-adoption people to help people who are adopting. And it goes from anything from people making bracelets to raffles for anything from motorcycles to raffles for pictures. We did the matching grant. We sent out letters to our friends and family. Like, if you will donate, whatever you donated, they matched. So that was helpful. We did a letter that way. And we sent some of the the people who aren't on social media letters saying, hey, these are some of our fundraisers if you want to be involved. So that was helpful as well.
Awesome.
Also, we talk to our groups at church and our work and everything else like that as well. So it's basically just getting it out there, word of mouth, and through social media connections and things like that. I mean, we had people buying T-shirts from us that hadn't really talked to us in 10 years or something, and they were just like, oh yeah, we would love to do that. And we would like, okay, the T-shirts are this much, and just whatever you would donate above that, would be a blessing. And we'd get various amounts, and we're very blessed that they were able to do that.
Yeah.
Also, I don't know if people know this. We didn't know it going through it, but at the end of your adoption, of course, you want to save all your receipts. But the big thing is the government does give you a tax credit. So that's helpful. And it ranges. It can go anywhere from $8,000 to, I think the highest is like 15. Could be more than that. I'm not sure. But of course, you have to prove all your, through your receipts, what you're paying for and, the grants that you were given and stuff like that. So if people are considering adopting, that could be an option as well.
Okay. Yeah, that's really good to know. Okay. So let's just talk a little bit about the transition when you brought, Jordan home. I know that you had mentioned before, I've seen you talk about the concept of cocooning. And then also I wanted to ask about if there were cultural differences that you had to transition as well, and if that was part of the cocooning. And could you just tell us a little bit about that?
Okay. Well, cocooning is basically a concept of just your immediate family as far as your husband, the new child, and your child, basically closing off. I know it may sound difficult or insensitive to other people, but it was the best that we decided to do. Closing yourself kind of off and cocooning yourself around this child. So any basic needs that were met by us. We limited our visitation with families and outside people so that he would learn that you have to be comfortable at home. Mm-hmm. This is a different place. It's a different country. People look differently. They sound differently. So he needs to know that his base foundation comes from his family. It comes from me and Scotty and the kids. And then eventually other outsiders could come in, and we felt like that was what was best, and it actually worked out great for Jordan because for the longest time we did have issues with communication. He thankfully our foster home had taught him sign language.
Okay.
So we were able to have about 10 words through sign language to help us figure out what he needed. Drink, food, eat, that kind of things, bathroom, restroom were taught to him, and they told us about that, and that was to help with our transition. The other thing that we did was we didn't go out much. If we went to the store, it was one of us. It wasn't both of us, so that his support system was always around him. Mm-hmm. We slept in the same room as him for a while, for about 6 months. But when we initially came home, it was both of us in the room. And then after about 2 months, we transitioned where it was one of us in the room. And then eventually we went into, he was sleeping on his own in his room. But that took almost close to about a year. So that was a different transition. I wouldn't say so much with a newborn, because a lot of people keep their newborns. We did for a year in our room. But we wanted him to feel like everything, his foundation was from us. Some of the cultural differences, of course, was food. French fries were not on the menu in China.
Okay.
So before we came home, we learned all of his likes and dislikes as far as what he liked to eat. And then my sister, I would communicate that with her. She's gone through the process of having two children from China. She went out to our Asian market and filled our freezer full of dumplings. His favorite is dumplings, still is.
Awesome.
So that was a little different. He is actually younger. I think if he was older, I've heard of different cultural differences being an issue. Cold baths. He was used to cold baths. He still is. He does not like a warm bath.
Oh, wow.
That was a different cultural difference.
Okay.
Because you go to the bathtub, you make it warm, and he is like, I ain't having this.
Okay.
Trying to think of what else. I think a lot of our transition was just around, bedtime. Also, because it was difficult for him at night. Nighttime was more difficult than daytime, big time for him.
That makes sense. Okay, so after going through these experiences over the last several years, has your perspective changed on what the most important thing in life is now, and what do you think it is?
Absolutely. I think going through everything that we've gone through, it has changed us. We value our family big time. We value the people that surround us. We also center our life on Christ because we know that that God and Christ they already had this planned out for us. So we have to know that the next step has already been planned out for us. We just have to go by faith, not by sight. We've got to remember that. I think that our concept on family is different because it doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter, that he doesn't have my eyes or he doesn't have Scotty's nose that makes him a part of our family. Mm-hmm. It's because he is our family. So that to me has changed a lot. And we've come to grow as a family, whether it be through our child or through the people that surround us. So I think that's what's changed big time for us.
The other thing about family is it's not always just blood. That's your family. I mean, we've had more friends that have supported us and have gotten us through a lot of situations than our close blood family. So we think of them as our family as well. So that has been a major transition because as you're growing up and everything, you always think, my blood family is my only true family, and that's not always the case. There are people out there that can love you more than you would ever know, and support you more than you would ever know, and whenever these types of situations come about, and that's when you find out, wow, there's people that really care for me outside of my own personal family. So that kind of changed as well. And then, like Carrie said, just our faith in Christ and, just different, just kind of going through the whole process and what it all did. I mean, it was just life changing all around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Really powerful stuff, I think. I love that you said that there are people out there who love you, more than you could ever imagine that aren't your family. I mean, I think that's a really important message. So, anyways, let me ask both of you. We're going to end on this note. What does being human mean to you?
Let's see. Being human is just caring and loving one another. I think that if there was more of that, that the world would change and there's different types of love. Don't get me wrong. There's your typical loving, nurturing type, and then there's also the tough love, and that comes from just different personalities and things like that. But if what you do out of love to support someone is what drives you, then that's what makes you human, I believe.
I believe that being human, there's so many parts that go into it, but being human is knowing that you are loved by a higher being through Christ, and that you're going to fail, and that He will put it back together if you have faith and drive towards Him and not away from Him. I believe that being human is also loving others like you love Him. And I think that that's a big, big deal. And the more that you love and the more that you are towards Christ, the more you're going to put out there towards others. Mm-hmm. So loving one another.
Well, that is awesome. And I just want to thank you guys so much for coming on the show today and sharing your beautiful story. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
You guys, once again, I hope that you gained some inspiration and were uplifted by this episode. Carrie and Scotty, they really want to help you if you're going through a similar process. So go on over to the show notes at onbeinghumanpodcast.com/episodes/011, and their email address is there if you need support or have questions. And this week in the show notes, there is also the website they used to search for grants and funding. So you'll want to check that out. And as always, feel free to leave a comment because I'd love to hear from you. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Tune in weekly at onbeinghumanpodcast.com for more soul-exposing explorations of what it means to be human. Until next week, love to you all.